Welcome to this predicted paper from On Maths. This paper represents the best guess for the upcoming exams. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our On Maths site. On Maths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. For this question, it's really important that we understand what the words sum and product mean. Now, sum just means add, and product just means times. So we're going to start by adding the 5 and the 4. So that will equal 9. And then what we're going to do is find the product of 9 and 7. So we're going to multiply them together. 9 times 7, which is 63. So our answer is 63. So with this question, we need to first of all count how many sides this polygon has. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 10 sides. And we just need to know that a 10-sided shape is a decagon. Now we are expected to know all of the names of shapes between 3 and 10 sides. So if you don't know them already, just sit down and learn them. So we need to first of all understand what a cube number is. So a cube number is the answer to when you get 3 integers or whole numbers and we multiply them by themselves 3 times. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, 4 times 4 times 4 is 64, and 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So 1, 8, 27, 64, 125 are all cube numbers, and it goes on forever. And this question's asked us to find all the odd, or an odd, cube number that is smaller than 100. So it has to be odd, so that gets rid of the 8 and the 64. And it has to be smaller than 100, so that gets rid of the 125. So I can either write down 1 would be a fine answer, or 27. I'm going to go for 1. With this question, you just need to know the names of 3D shapes. This one is called a cylinder. If I split this shape into 2 sets of 6 blocks, when we're asked to shade in 3/6, for each one of those, or each set of blocks, I'm going to shade in 3 of the 6. So that's 3 for the first set, and this is 3 for the second set. And that's our answer. Now you might notice that 3 over 6 is the same as a half, because we can divide on 1 by 3, and so all I need to do is shade in a half. Or you might convert 3 over 6 into 6 over 12, and there's 12 squares altogether, so it's 6 of the 12 squares. There's lots of ways of doing this question. Whenever you have this situation where you've got 2 lines intersecting or hitting each other, the 2 angles that are created either side of the line are always going to be equal. And we call these vertically opposite angles. So A is going to equal 120 degrees. You'll normally also need to write down the fact that they are vertically opposite angles. To convert between meters and centimeters, we times by 100. So we do 12.31 times by 100, which would be 1,231 centimeters. To find the factors of 30, we're just going to write down all the factor pairs, or all the pairs of numbers that multiply together to make 30. So 1 times 30 is 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10. Now 4 doesn't go because 30 is not in the 4 times table. 5 times 6, and we notice that if we pick 6, it's just going to be 6 times 5, it's just going to be the opposite. So the factors are all the numbers that we've just written down, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15 and 30. This question's all about like terms. So what we can do is we can add this 10u with this 11u to make 21u. We can also add this 6v with this plus 4v to make 10v. We can also add this 10w to this minus 6w. So 10 take away 6 is 4w, so plus 4w. But we can't add a u term to a v term to a w term. So we have to just leave them be. So our answer is 21u plus 10v plus 4w. But we can multiply them, we just can't add or subtract them. So 55% is the same as 55 over 100. And what I can do is I can divide top one of the fraction by 5. And so that is going to equal 11 over 20. Now in total there are 20 squares here because there's 5 across and 4 down. 5 times 4 is 20. And if there's 20 squares and we're looking to shade in 11 20ths, it's just going to be 11 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're going to start off by writing the sequence out. And what you might notice straight away is that each of the terms is increased by 2. And so we're asked to find the next 2 terms. So we're just going to keep this pattern going. So increase it by 2, that would be 20. Increase by 2 again, and that would be 22. So for this question we need to convert the percentage to a decimal. So to do that we get that 8.9%. And we just divide by 100, and so that will give us 0.089, and so we get that 0.089 of normally means times in maths, so we just go times that by 457, and that will give us 40.67. So what we need to do is find out where the graph is at its highest, and so it's highest here. And so if we go down from there, we find out what year it is. Well, these years seem to be going up in 1, so that's 1950, 1951, 1952. So the answer would be 1952. So the first thing we're going to do is write this as a ratio between the fractions. So we're going to have green to black. Now it says that a quarter of the counters are black, and therefore the remaining counters will be green. So if a quarter are black, that leaves 3/4 to be green. And what we can do here is on both sides of the ratio, what I'm going to do is just times it by 4. So I'm just going to times 4 both sides. So 3 divided by 4 times 4, because over 4 just means divided by 4. So 3 divided by 4 times by 4 just gets rid of the fraction. And 1 divided by 4 times 4 is just going to be 1. Now this might surprise some people because they will probably think it's a ratio of 4 to 1, but we can show here that it's a ratio of 3 to 1. You will need to use a paper and pencil to do this physically. You can't really do this on the computer. And make sure you have a ruler and a compass. So the first thing we're going to do is draw our 10 centimeter line. And we're going to get our compass and we're going to measure the 6 centimeters for the left hand side. So we're going to measure 6 centimeters on our compass. And we're going to just put a little arc there. We can do the same on the other side for 8 centimeters. So we're going to do our 8 centimeter arc from the right hand side, and we're going to put the point of the compass here. And it should be like that. And you can see where the 2 arcs overlap, which is here. and we can join these up with straight lines. And it says to measure the angle x, so we're going to need a protractor for this bit. I'm going to put our protractor here with the crosshairs matching here. So we're going to be looking at the inside, or the outside one, and it comes up as 37 degrees. So our answer is 37 degrees. So we know that the mean is the sum of numbers over the amount. But in this question, we're actually given what the mean is. We're given that that is 29. We're also given the fact that there are 4 cards, so we're given the amount. So what we can do is just get our lines in and solve this. So what we're going to do is just times both sides by 4. So we're going to do 29 times 4, which is 116. And so we know that the sum of the numbers will be 116. So all we need to do is to find the 4th card, is get that 116 and just take away the numbers that we know. And when we do that, we get the answer 26. Now you can easily check this by adding up 37, 26, 27 and 26 again, and then dividing it by 4, and you will get 29. So our sequence, our nth term, is 20 times n plus 6. For the 5th term, n would be 5, so it's 20 times 5 plus 6. 20 times 5 is 100, 100 plus 6 is 106. So there's a formula for percentage increase or percentage change. And it is the change over the original amount times 100%. So to find out the change here, we're going to do the difference between 1,421 and 1,100. So we're going to do 1,421 take away 1,100, which is 321. Divide that by the original amount. So the original amount was the 1,100, and then times by 100%. And that's going to be 29.18%. We're going to start off by finding what the multiplier will be. So we'll start off with 100%, and it's a decrease of 32.6%, so we're going to take that away, and that will leave the percentage as 67.4%. Next we need to convert that into a decimal, so we're going to divide it by 100, and that will make it into a multiplier. And the beauty about a multiplier is all we need to do is get the amount from the question, 486, and times it by the multiplier, and it will do all the hard work for us, and it will give us the answer of 327.56. To get from the length of a square to the area, we square the length. To work backwards, what we do is we square root, because the inverse of square is square root. So we've got 196, and we're going to square root it to find the length. So we work out the square root of 196, which is what number times itself is 196. And you should learn them from 1 to 15, so you should know all of the square numbers from 1 to 15. So you should know that the answer is 14. So the length therefore is 14. So to work out what the perimeter is going to be the distance around the square. So if I draw a square out, we know that each of these lengths are 14. So it's just going to be 14 times 4, which will be 56. To find the area of a circle, we use the formula area equals pi r squared, or pi times r squared. We're given that the fact that the radius is 12, so it would be pi times 144. Type that into the calculator and you get 452.389 blah blah blah. And the question asks us to round it to 2 decimal places, so that would be 452.39. So adjacent angles in a parallelogram add up to 180, and the reason for that is that we've got a set of parallel lines here, and both of these angles are within that set of parallel sides, so they're actually co-interior, interior, or allied angles, whichever you choose to call them, and so we know that they're going to add up to 180. So we're going to do 180, take away the 61 we already have there, which is 119. So our answer is 119 degrees. The first thing we need to do is work out what angle CBD is. So we're looking for angle CBD, and that's going to be 180 take away 170, and the reason being is it's angles on straight line. Angles on a straight line add up to 180, so that's going to be 10 degrees, so this will be 10 degrees. We then need to find out what angle CDB is, and this is obviously going to be 10 degrees as well because it's angles in an isosceles, so this will be 10 degrees, and the reason will be that it's an isosceles triangle. And to find out what x is going to be, it's going to be 180 subtract 10 plus 10. And the reason for that is it's angles in a triangle add up to 180. So that's going to be 160 degrees. Make sure you state your reasons for every step of the working out, because there's normally quite a few marks for the reasons. So the only way of answering this question is to work out what these are as ordinary numbers. And so 7 times 10 to the power of 7 would be 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 9 times 10 to the power of 4 would be 90,000, so that would be 9, 0, 0, 0, 0. And so we're just subtracting them like that. And so we'll get 6, 9, 9, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And obviously if this is on the calculator paper, just type it into your calculator. There are no tricks here. You can't do anything with the 7 and the 9. You're not subtracting powers or anything. You're just literally typing in what it says. And there's a button on the calculator like that that you will need to use. So if you don't know what that is, ask your teacher or ask someone to help you out with that. So I'm going to start just by writing out the equation, and I can put my lines in. Okay, we're asked to make x the subject, so we're going to first of all add 10 to both sides. In fact, I'm just going to move all this over a little bit so I've got a bit more space. Okay, so we're left with m plus 10 on the left hand side, and we've got 1/7 x on the right hand side. Now to get rid of the 1/7, what I can do is just times both sides by 7. So 7 brackets m plus 10 equals x. So x therefore would equal 7 brackets m plus 10, but it says to expand your answer fully. So we're just going to expand the brackets, 7m plus 70. So let's look through this question to see what information we're given and what information we're looking for. So we're given the acceleration is 13 meters per second squared. We're also given the distance is 19, and we're also given the end velocity, which is v, is 34. And we're looking for the initial velocity. So which of these formulae include A, S, V, and U? That's got a T in it, that's got a T in it, so it's going to be this one here. So let's write that out. V squared equals U squared plus 2AS. So that would be 34 squared equals U squared, because that's the one we're looking for, plus 2 times 13 times 19. Okay, so let's just work these parts out. And so we've got 2 times 13 times 19, which is what, 494. And it turns into a solving part, so we're just going to solve this. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 494 from both sides. And so we're left with 662 equals U squared. Then we're just going to square root both sides. And so square root of that is going to be 25.729 blah blah blah. And it says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so it's going to be 25.73. Whenever you have north lines, they will always be parallel. So what we have here is we have a straight line going through 2 parallel lines, which are our 2 north lines. And therefore this angle here is going to equal this angle here. And the reason for that is that the 2 angles are alternate, they're Z angles. So we can say that that is 135, and I always like to try and show the examiner the reasons. So that's because it's alternate angles. And we know also that angles on a point add up to 360. So this red angle represents the bearing of A from B. And so to find this angle out, what we're going to do is just 360 take away 135. And the reason for that is angles on a point equal 360 degrees. And when we work that out, we get the answer of 225. So our bearing is 225 degrees. On a scatter graph, an outlier is a point which doesn't fit the pattern. And as we can see here, all of these coordinates fit kind of a nice line going down there. So they all are showing a trend. But we've got this point here that's nowhere near that trend at all, and that's what we call an outlier. So we know that these are going up in 2s, so this will be 28, so the x coordinate will be 28, and this will be 19. So our coordinate will be 28, 19 for our outlier. Okay, so we're going to start by writing this out a little bit bigger, give us a bit more space. So it's minus 6x is less than 60. And we're going to do our tram lines down. And we're going to start by dividing both sides by minus 6, because that's what this is doing. It's timesing the x by minus 6. So we're going to divide both sides by minus 6. So that gets rid of the minus 6 on the left-hand side. And it's going to be 60 divided by minus 6, which will be minus 10. Now we've got to be really careful here, because whenever you times or divide both sides by a negative, you must switch the inequality. So instead of pointing to the left, it's now going to point to the right. So our answer is x is greater than minus 10. So angles on a point add up to 360, and we are given the values of the angles, but in terms of r. So we know that r plus 9r plus 20 will equal 360. So we've got an equation here we can solve. So first of all, let's add the r's together, and so that will be 10r plus 20 equals 360. Then we're going to subtract the 20 from both sides. So we have 10r equals 340. And then we're going to divide by 10 both sides. So we have r equals 34. So our answer is 34. We can't work out what x is straight away, but we can find this value here. And we know with Pythagoras we can find a third length if we've got other two in a right angled triangle. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And a and b were labelled. C is always opposite the right angle. So it'd be 49 squared plus b squared equals 68 squared. And 49 squared is 2,401. And 68 squared is 4,624. So we are solving here, so let's get our lines down. And we're going to start by subtracting the 2,401 from both sides. So we've got b squared equals 2,223. Then we're going to square root both sides, and we've got b equal to 47.148, blah blah blah. Okay, we're now looking at the second diagram, and this time we're going to have a, we've got our b, and we're going to call x the c. So it would be a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but this time a is 39. B we are given as 47.148, we've just worked that out. And we're looking for c, in fact we can call it x now. Okay, so we need to square that. So we do 39 squared plus 47.148 squared, and that will be 3,744 equal to x squared. And we'll just get our lines in because we need to square root both sides, and we get 61.188 blah 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 is equal to x. It says it wants it to two decimal places, so that will be 61.19. So for this frequency polygon, what we've got to do is work backwards to work out what the table was that created it. So we're going to just draw a starting of a table, and we're going to have our midpoint first, then our like money spent, our intervals, and then our frequency. So the first midpoint is at 40, and we can see here that that was, just get rid of that, that was between, like that was in this group here. So that is 0, and I'm just going to use m for money, 0 to 80, and the frequency is how high it is, which is 10. The next midpoint is here, so that was going to be 120. We can see that that's between 80 and 160, and the frequency is 20. And finally the last midpoint is here, which is obviously 200, and that is between 160 and 240, and the height of it is going to be 7. So we're looking for the probability customer spent less than 160, so that is these two here. Okay, so there are 30 that are less than 160. And how many are there altogether? Well, it's that 10 plus the 20 plus the 7. So it's going to be over 37. So it's 30 over 37. This looks like it's a really tricky question, and it is a little bit tricky, but it's a little bit easier than maybe it looks. The highest common factor is found when you have the prime factors, which we do, of two numbers, and you put them into a Venn diagram. Then you can find the prime factor, the highest common factor, by multiplying all the numbers in the overlap. So we're going to rewrite these numbers, just instead of squareds, we're just going to write them out without index form. Just makes it a bit easier. And so I'm just removing the squareds. And we're going to draw ourselves a Venn diagram. So let's just do a rectangle at the outside. I'm going to try and do some nice circles here. Try my best anyway. Okay, so on the left hand side we have the 450, on the right hand side we have the 132. So we'll start with the 450 and the numbers. So actually looking at the numbers, looking at the factors at the top, the prime factors, we can see they both have a 2 in them. So I cross them both out and put 2 in the middle. We can see they both have a 3 in them. So cross those 3's out and put 3 in the middle. And then 450 has a 3, a 5 and a 5. And 132 has the 2 and the 11. So to find the highest common factor, as I said, you multiply all the numbers that are in the middle. And so the highest common factor will be 6. The formula y equals mx plus c includes this m, and the m means the gradient. So if we're looking for something that is parallel to y equals 9x plus 18, we're looking at this number here. And for it to be parallel, it needs to have the same gradient. So we could just write y equals 9x plus or subtract anything, or we could just write y equals 9x. I'm going to say plus 5. When proving two triangles are congruent, and congruent means exactly the same, we're going to have one of 4 answers. Either side angle side is the same, angle angle side, or angle side angle. Side 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 are the same, or they have the same right angle, hypotenuse and side. This question doesn't have a right angle, so we can cross that out. It has 2 lengths, so 2 sides, but not 3, so we can cross that one out. It only has 1 angle, so we can cross this one out. So we're looking to see whether it has the same side, then angle, then side. So here we've got 13 as a side, then 139 as an angle, then 6 as a side. 13 as a side, 139 as an angle, and then 6 as a side. So they have the side, angle, side. The first thing that we can actually work out for this Venn diagram is this part here. So it says 12 had a cat but not a dog. So the cat but not a dog is showed with this A here. So if 12 had a cat but not a dog, and in total 22 had a cat, we're going to do 22 take away 12, which is 10. So 10 had a cat and a dog. If 16 had a dog and 10 also had a cat, that means that 6 had a dog. Let's make sure we fill these in. And if overall there were 31 people and there were 12 who just had a cat, 10 who had a cat and a dog, and 6 who had a dog, that leaves 3 left over. I'm just going to write the question out, so we've got a little bit bigger writing to play with here. And it doesn't actually matter which method you expand these brackets with. I'm going to use Smiles and Rainbows, so we multiply the 8 by the 10x, which will make 80x, and multiply the 8 by the 4, which will make 32. Now here we've got a minus 5 on the outside, so we do minus 5 times 8x, which is minus 40x, and minus 5 times minus 4, which is actually plus 20. And a lot of students will write take away 20 there, but that is a minus 5 on the outside of the brackets there. So it's minus 5 times the minus 4 there will give you a plus 20. Then 80x take away 40x, which will give us 40x. And 32 plus 20, which would be 52. So our answer would be 40x plus 52. So to answer this question, we've got to first of all work out what transformation it's going to be. And it hasn't changed size, it has changed its way up, and it's obviously going to have been rotated. That's going to be a rotation. And for a rotation, we need to know the angle which it's rotated and where the center of rotation is. Well, it's obviously gone 90 degrees. It's gone a quarter turn, so it's 90 degrees. And it's gone that way. And so that's the same way as a clock goes. So that's a clockwise. And we need to find the center of rotation. So we need to find out where the center of the rotation is. So the way of doing that is just trace out the shape you've got. So trace out A. And it's going to look something like this. And trace it out. Just connect those bottom bits a little bit better. And trace it out. And what you've got to do is you've got to find out where on this page you put your pencil when you rotate it. And so you're just going to rotate it with putting your pencil somewhere. So you want to end up with it looking like this on the tracing paper. And you, just with a bit of trial and error, you'll realize that you can put your pencil here. So your pencil will go at 2, 2 to get from A to B. So our center of rotation is going to be 2, 2. So I'm going to write this question out a bit bigger, just so we've got a bit more room. And we're asked to solve. So what we're going to do with this is we're actually going to start by putting our solving lines in. And we're going to try and figure out what we do to get x on its own. So we're going to start by subtracting 9 to both sides. And so that will leave us with the 10x squared on the left-hand side, and then 250 on the right. Then we're going to divide by 10 both sides. So we've got x squared equals 25. And then we're going to square root both sides. Now, this does give us 5, but it also gives us -5, because -5 times -5 is also 25. So our two solutions are 5 and -5. The first thing we can do is work out what the circumference of the full circle would be. Obviously we haven't got a full circle here, but what the circumference of the full circle would be had we got a full circle. So that's going to be pi times the diameter. The diameter is twice as big as the radius, and this 21 centimeters here is the radius of a full circle. So that's going to be pi times 2 lots of 21, which is going to be 42 times pi, which is going to be 131.946, blah, blah, blah. Now, we don't have a full circle here. We've got to work out what fraction of a circle we have. Well, we obviously have a quarter of a circle. So to find the arc length, which is this part here, it's like a part of a circumference, to find the length of the arc, what we're going to do is just get that circumference and we're just going to divide it by 4. So we're going to get the 131.946, blah, 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 and divide it by 4. When we do that, we get 32.986, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not what the perimeter is. Perimeter is the total distance around the circle. So we've also got to add on the 2 parts here, the 2 radii here, to get the full distance around the circle. So the perimeter is going to be the arc length plus a radius plus a radius. So that's going to be 32.986 blah 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 plus 21 plus 21, which equals 74.986 blah blah blah. And when we round that to 2 decimal places, we get the answer of 74.99. When you have a fraction, it's just a fancy way of showing a divide. So this is x to the power of 11 divided by x to the power of 3. And indices rules say that when you divide 2 powers with the same base, you subtract the powers. So it becomes 11 take away 3. 11 take away 3 is 8. So that's x to the power of 8. The word truncated means that we just literally cut off the next number along. So if we imagine this is our number, we just cut it off. So it's not the same as rounding. We just don't change this digit at all. We just cut off the remaining digits. So the smallest number it could be before it was cut off is 79.500000. The largest number it could have been, well, it could have been 79.5999, etc. So that's the largest it could have been. So to do our error interval, well, the smallest it could have been is 79.5, and it could have been 79.5, and we'll call this x. But we're looking at any number that is less than 79.6. So any number that's less than 79.6. If it was 79.6, then when we cut it off, it would show as 79.6. With this question, you've just got to know what the different functions look like. So with C and D, we've got quadratic functions. One's a positive quadratic, which is a U shape. One's a negative quadratic, which is a kind of upside down U shape or an N shape. And here we don't have that, so we can get rid of those in our thoughts straight away. A is a positive cubic, which goes up, then down, then up again. And B is a negative cubic, which goes down, up, and then down again. So this one here goes up, down, up again. That's going to be a positive cubic. So our answer is A. When it's said that y is inversely proportional to x, it means that y changes as 1 over x changes. And to write this in an equation, all we do is we just write y equals k over x. Now k is something we need to find. So what we need to do is find out what a value of y and a value of x are somewhere on the graph that would be formed from this, and we've got that in this question. So we know that when y is 7, then x is going to be 7.9. And what I need to do now is just draw my lines down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just times both sides by 7.9. And so we have k equals, and it'd be 7 times 7.9, which is 55.3. So we know that k is 55.3. So I'm just going to rewrite this equation here, or this formula here. But instead of k, I know that it's going to be 55.3. So our answer is y equals 55.3 over x. There are two shapes we need to find the volume of. There's this cylinder here and this hemisphere here. So we might as well start with this cylinder. And the formula for the volume is pi times r squared times height. So it's the radius is 9, so 9 squared times the height, which is 30. And when we work that out, we get 7,634.070, blah, blah, blah. Next is the hemisphere. To find the volume of the hemisphere, well, the volume of a sphere is 4/3 times pi times r cubed. But because it's a hemisphere, we just times that by a half. So it's half times 4/3 times pi times r, which is the radius, which is 9 cubed. And that gives us 1,526.814, blah, blah, blah. And so the total volume is 7,634.070, blah, 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 plus the 1,526.814, blah, 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 which equals 9,160.884, blah, blah, blah. It says it wants it to 2 decimal places, so when we round that, we get 9,160.88. There are a few different ways you could answer this question. I'm going to do it with a tree diagram, but you didn't need to draw a tree diagram to answer this question. So we've got our first tree, which is our first bus. And the choices are male and female. And we've got our second kind of branch, I suppose. And it's still male and female. And this is our second bus. So the property of male on a first bus is 9/15. And therefore the property of female is 1 minus 9/15, which would be 6/15. Male on the second bus is 7/15. And so female would be 8/15, because they need to add up to 1. And it's independent, so these will be the same. And the question is basically asking what is the probability that both will be female. So to have both female, we need to have gone down this line at the start and then this line again. Okay, so looking at the fractions along the way, it's 6/15 and 8/15. The word "and" in probability means times. So whenever you're finding the probability of getting to an outcome, so this outcome would be FF, because they're both female, you are multiplying the fractions that you go across. So it would be 6/15 times 8/15. So 6 times 8 is 48. And times the bottoms, 15 times 15 is 225. Now you can actually cancel that down. So what you can do is you can divide top and bottom by 4. And that will give you 16. Is it 4? No. You can times top and bottom by 3. And that would be 16/75. So either 48/225 or 16/75. So we need to first of all work out what the length of the side of the square is. And to do that, what we do is we get the 44v to the power 4 w to the power 5, and we just divide it by 4. And to do that, all we need to do is just divide the coefficient by 4. So it'd be 11v to the power 4 w to the power 5. Some people will try and do something with the v to the power 4 w to the power 5, but if you think about it, if I just draw out my square, if it's 11v to the power 4 w to the power 5 all the way around, when you add, you don't add the v to the power 4 w to the power 5, it's just going to be 11 lots, another 11 lot, another lot of 11, and another lot of 11. So it's 44 v to the power 4 w to the power 5 in total. And to work out what the area is, we obviously are going to square that. So we're going to do 11 v to the power 4 w to the power 5, and we're going to just times it by itself, which is what squaring means. Okay, so we're going to times the 11s together, so that's going to be 121. Going to times the v to the power 4s together, and remember with indices, if you times two powers of the same base, and they're both v, then we just add the powers together, so that'd be 8. And we're going to add the w to the power 5s together, so that makes 10. So it's 121 v to the power of 8, w to the power of 10. So we're going to start off with 100%. And it says that the card depreciates. That means goes down by, so it goes down by 1.7% every year. So we do 100 take away 1.7, which is 98.3, and that's percent. And we want that as a decimal, or as a multiplier we call it. And so we just divide it by 100 to make it into a decimal, 0.983. And that's our multiplier. And the beautiful thing about a multiplier is we just need the amount of years. Well, it says from 1980 to 1985, so that's going to be 5 years. So it's going to be 5 years. And so what we do is we get the original amount, which was 2,245, and times it by the multiplier 5 times. Now, I can't be bothered on my calculator to times it by 0.983 5 times. So what you can do is you can do it to the power of 5, which basically means the same thing. And that gives us 2060.553. and when we round that, that would be £2,060 and 55 pence. So we've got a right angle triangle here, and we've given two lengths and an angle, or it involves two lengths and angles. So that's going to be a trigonometry question. And to do trigonometry, we start off by labelling the sides. So we've got the hypotenuse opposite the right angle, the opposite is opposite the marked angle, and the adjacent is between the right angle and the marked angle. And we notice that the opposite doesn't have a number or letter next to it, so we get rid of that. Next step is to draw in our triangles. So they are going to be SO, CA, TOA. We've crossed out the O, so we can cross out the TOA and the SO, and that leaves us with the CA. So write out the formula, which is cos x equals A over h. Now the angle is what x represents in our formula. So that's going to be cos 42 equals what A is represented with an x, and the hypotenuse is 7.3. So next we get our solving lines in. And notice to get x on its own, what we're going to do is just times both sides by 7.3. And when we do that, 7.3 times cos 42, and be careful when you type in cos 42, close the brackets, then times it by 7.3. A lot of calculators open brackets when you type in sine, cos or tan. And we get 5.424 blah 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 equals x. So round to two decimal places, it will be 5.42. So this question is asking us to find the probability of not A and B. So if we look at the, and I'm just going to quickly draw out a similar Venn diagram. So if this is A and this is B, then not A will be everywhere apart from A. So it would be all of this here. And if we do the same thing again, and this time we're interested in where B is, so we've got A and B, then B is this part here. So if you have a look and see which are shaded in both, you can see that this part here is shaded in both. So this part here is not in A and is in B. So it's this 3 here. So the probability is going to be that 3 over the total amount. So all of these added together, which is 25. First thing we notice with these simultaneous equations is the coefficients of the x and the y's are different. But if you look at the y's, there's a -3 here and there's a +6 here. So all we need to do is times the top one by 2, and they'll both be 6, and we ignore the signs. So we're going to quickly multiply everything in the top by 2 to make the coefficients of the y's the same. So we're going to times that by 2, times that by 2, and times that by 2. So we get 6x minus 6y equals 30. So I'm just going to write that in again. So 6x minus 6y equals 30. And I'm going to write in the second equation underneath, because that's how we do it with simultaneous equations. Now, simultaneous equations, we work downwards. So I'm just going to show circles showing that we're going downwards here. And what we want to do is have a look at the signs for the y's, because we made the y's the same. And if they are the same sign, we're going to subtract. If they are different signs, we're going to add. Well, we've got a minus and a plus, so they are different signs. So we're going to add. And I'm going to work out the sums. So 6x plus 4x is 10x. Now this is a crucial bit. Minus 6y plus, which is just a plus, 6y is 0, and that's why we added to get rid of the 6y's. 30 plus 10 is 40. I'm going to just solve that. So we're going to divide both sides by 10, and we get x equals 4. Now that's one of the solutions, but we've got to find out what y is as well. So we're going to look at this first equation here, and we're going to just write out that, but substituting in the 4. So it's going to be 3 times 4 minus 3y equals 15. Get our solving lines in. So 3 times 4 is 12, so we're going to take away 12 for both sides. So we've got minus 3y equals 15, take away 12, which is 3. And then we're going to divide by the minus 3 both sides. So it's going to be y equals minus 1. And we can check this by substituting the x and y into the second equation. So 4 times 4 plus 6 times minus 1, which is equal to 10. To add column vectors, all we need to do is add the tops and add the bottoms. So 3 plus 7 is 10, and 4 plus minus, or just 4 minus 5, is minus 1. So our answer is 10 minus 1. It doesn't look like it, but we actually have a quadratic here, and the reason it doesn't look like it is because we don't have an x term, but as long as we have an x squared term and a number term, we definitely have a quadratic. And notice something about this second number. It's a negative version of a square number, and that will always be the case because this question is using something called difference of two squareds. And it's very, very simple to work out. What you do is you put down two sets of brackets and you square root the first term. Well, that's just going to be x. And you put the positive and negative versions of the square root. So we're going to square root 121, which is 11. So we're going to put plus 11 and minus 11, and that's it. Now, when we expand that, and we'll just go quickly expand that now to have a look, it's going to be x squared plus 11x minus 11x minus 121. And notice that the two x terms cancel each other out, which is why we don't have the x term. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our OnMaths site. OnMaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.